Welcome back. Satyam's not reacted very well to the names of the people who've tendered their expressions of interest yesterday. Stocks opened weak and has remained weak throughout the morning, 4.5% lower. Of course, there have been reports that the number of people who have expressed interest have been probably 8 or 9. We have only about 4 names confirmed. The rest is up for speculation. However, there are some suggestions that a few MNC players have bid. Is it likely, and who could be the likely bidders from the MNC fraternity? Moshe Katri of SG Cowen, who tracks Indian and global IT, joins in from New York. Moshe, thanks very much for joining in. There has been some talk that HP might be in the race. Is it logical? Does it appear to you that they might have thrown in their bid into the ring?
Well, as you know, HP acquired EDS. EDS owns Emphasis, or partially owns Emphasis, so HP already made some sort of an effort to expand their offshore presence. That's number one. CSC acquired Covansys, and I think they're doing a pretty decent job of integrating that acquisition. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they would put a bid for Satyam, considering Satyam's stature as a Tier 1 offshore player. But I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't put a bid as well, just given the fact that they've already made that commitment and they've already invested in extending offshore presence in India.
Moshe, hi. Sentiment got fired up a lot in the past when the name of IBM came up, but from what we understand, IBM and Accenture actually not putting in expressions of interest. Are you surprised by that, or did you see it coming?
So there are two ways of looking at it. First, Accenture and IBM have already made some pretty significant investments in terms of building a very credible offshore capability. Accenture has roughly, 50,000 people in India. That's part of their global delivery model or global delivery capability. And Accenture is actually very proud of being able to do this organically. IBM has over 70,000 people in India. They've also built a very credible presence. And again, they've done this organically. Almost actually, IBM made an acquisition, but Accenture is the one who really did it organically now. You also have to realize, if you do go ahead, whoever does go ahead and acquire Satyam does have to consider a couple things. Exposure to lawsuits or litigation, the probability of clients jumping ship, understanding the profile of the portfolios of the active engagements in terms of returns, profitability, and free cash flows, and then finally the ability to retain key personnel, that's project managers and relationship account managers, etc. So it's a very complicated thing to go ahead and acquiring a services business, especially because what you're really acquiring is really headcount, it's people. So if you're able to do this organically, which is what Accenture has done, and build it without any complicated acquisitions, and IBM's done that as well, I'm assuming this is why both of these companies haven't really been considered as potential bidders.
Thanks, Moshe, very much for joining in with that perspective. So Moshe Katri says IBM very unlikely, probably no. Outside chance of HP and CSC bidding for Satyam. Let's get a legal perspective. Yesterday there were some reports suggesting that there's a US research firm which has put the value of the liabilities at only about $100 million. Is that likely? Ken Viannale of Viannale joins in on the line from New York. They are legal firms. They are a legal firm. Ken, thanks very much for joining in. In your eyes, is it likely that the legal liabilities on the class action suits could be limited to $100 million?
Well, they're assessing what they think they can get away with settling the case for. I think that figure is kind of low, frankly. The damages in the case are probably closer to $500 million. The company has clear liability. I mean, the chief executive officer, Raju, admitted to the fraud. He delineated it himself. It's going to be very difficult for the company to come up with any kind of a viable defense. So I think $100 million is a little bit on the low side, and you have to also consider that other foreign investors who have been sued in the United States under the U.S. securities laws have paid settlements much higher than that. Royal Dutch Petroleum paid over $400 million in the settlement to U.S. securities investors. Daimler Chrysler of Germany, BioVale of Canada. There's a whole group. I could go on and on of many of the settlements in the United States. So I don't think that they should think they're going to get out of the case that cheaply.
Ken, hi. So you're saying aside from size of losses, the size of claims could actually be a lot larger than the figures that are being talked about?
I think that the total losses, the total damages are ultimately going to be, just for the U.S. investors, are going to be something close to $500 million. And you have to remember that the U.S. ADRs represent about 20% of the equity of the entire company. But just for that 20%, we think the damages are something like $500 million. This has to be verified by experts, of course. This is more or less a back-of-the-envelope analysis. But, even the people that have come forward have, as they say, millions and millions of dollars of losses. So their estimate that they're going to have to only pay $100 million, I think, is on the low side.
Okay, Ken, thanks. We appreciate your quick take on that. Let's take a